I work in a 24/7 diner. Last night's customers weren't human. You know how it only takes a few small accidents to make you homeless. An emergency expense here, a couple of overdraft fees there, a rent check that bounced because of the fees, and an eviction notice that happened because of the bounce. I went from stable, albeit not wealthy, to sleeping in my car within 4 weeks, and I count myself lucky. At least I have a car and a job, which is why I have this story. I work the overnight shift at an all-night diner. Maybe you've heard of it, maybe you haven't. They never close, they're always hiring, and they don't really care about your background. It was the quiet hours, when the time is so late. It's early. The diner was empty, so I was leaning against the counter, eating a bowl of chili with shredded cheese and chopped onion while I scrolled for other jobs on my phone. The cook was outside, having a smoke, and the only other person in the diner with me was a young pregnant girl named Sheree, who was texting her grandmother nervously. "I'm gonna have to leave early. My grandma is telling me I need to come get my child. I hate when she does this, but I can't afford a babysitter either." Sheree was cool, but like everyone else here, she was having a rough time. Her boyfriend was in the prison 60 miles down the road, and part of why she worked here was to fill his accounts and have enough money for regular visits. He was there for murder or something, but we don't really talk about our personal lives, so I wasn't sure. Brucius was the cook, and he took a smoke break at every available opportunity, which, when the restaurant was empty, meant a lot of opportunity. He'd wander back if a customer walked in, but there was no reason to bother him. "Hey, it's not a problem. I'll handle everything. Go pick up your kid." "Thank you. You're a lifesaver. I owe you. Don't worry about it. I'll see you Wednesday." She ran out the door, and I didn't think anything of it. I heard her say goodbye to Brucius, and then a car engine grind as she drove away. I had another 4 hours left on my shift, and, with any luck, it would stay this quiet. Of course, since I'm here talking to you, you know I wasn't so lucky. The door dinged, and a family of 4 walked in: mum, dad, boy, and girl. My eyes flicked to the parking lot. I didn't see a car, but I just told myself they could have parked behind the building. It's funny, but I don't remember what they looked like. However, I do remember what they wore because it was some real Leave It to Beaver Andy Griffith type shit. The dad had on a blue plaid button-up shirt with a white undershirt beneath and khaki trousers. His hair was perfectly slicked back, like one of those old Brill Cream ads. The mum wore a red gingham check dress with a wide skirt, crinoline, and cinched waist. Her hair too was impeccable, straight out of an old Betty Crocker commercial. The little girl had her hair in 2 pigtails anointed with yellow bows and was wearing a pink shirt and blue shorts. The boy had a perfect cowlick and wore a blue shirt and red shorts. I felt unsettled. They looked perfect, but they felt wrong. Brucius came back inside, took one long look at the family as they settled into a booth, then went through the swinging doors into the back without a word. Rude. "Good evening, y'all," I said as I set down the laminated menus. "Can I get you anything to drink?" Each member of the family clasped their hands over their menu and turned in my direction with a smile. "4 glasses of milk, please," said the dad, his tone folksy, like something out of an old sitcom. "Everything looks so delicious," said the mom cheerily, without glancing at the menu. I couldn't remember the last time I'd seen adults order milk, especially at such a late hour. "Thank you," the dad said, when I set their glasses down. No one had moved 1 centimetre, their posture and faces in the same position as they watched me pour their beverages and return. I wiped my hands on my apron and attempted a smile. "Are you all ready?" glance towards my name tag in unison, and I was suddenly glad most of it was hidden beneath my hoodie. "We're waiting for someone," said the mom in a sing-song voice. They all turned to face either other, small, identical smiles on their faces. Condensation from their untouched glasses, making 4 tiny puddles. It wasn't right for children to be that quiet, or for anyone to be that still. To be honest, it wasn't normal to wait for someone at that hour either. I pretended to wipe down the counters. Guests weren't supposed to be left alone, and I didn't know what to do. "Are you sure I can't bring you anything?" I asked after a couple of distressingly silent minutes. "We told you, we're waiting," one of the children hissed. I startled and dropped the rag. That wasn't a child's voice. All 4 sets of eyes again fixated on me, but this time no one was smiling. My heartbeat rushed in my ears, and I could have sworn they heard it too. "Okay," I laughed nervously, my voice a little too high. Abruptly, out the corner of my eye, I saw Brucius waving frantically behind the swinging doors, gesturing for me to join him in the back. Relieved to have an excuse to leave, I backed away slowly, something deep in my most primal brain telling me not to turn my back to them. Rules be damned, I couldn't be out there alone with them a second longer. I'd barely opened the swinging doors when he jerked me all the way in. "Listen," he whispered urgently, his grip tight on my arm. "Those people out there aren't real people." I looked back through the small window in the swinging door. "I don't..." He interrupted me. "What I don't have is time to explain. You see that bag of salt?" He jerked his head towards a giant-sized bag of pure rock salt I'd somehow never seen since working here. "Pour a line at the front. Make sure it's far enough back that the swinging door won't break the line. It needs to go all the way from one wall to the other. Pour extra if you're not sure." I'm confused, and I'm scared shitless. Pour. He hefted his own large bag of salt and began making a wide circle, one large enough to fit us both. Looking behind him, I could see there was already a similar salt line at the back, stretching from wall to wall. I had no idea what was happening, but I'd never seen Brucius be anything other than laid back and chill my entire time here, and that was enough to get me to listen. As I poured, I took a peek through the round window in the swinging doors and spotted the family still sitting there. They still hadn't moved. "This is really fucking creepy," I muttered under my breath. Once my line of salt had been poured and double-checked, Brucius pointed to the inside of the circle and pressed a finger to his lips. Tiptoeing to the wall, he carefully opened the circuit box. Then, taking a deep breath, he switched off the breakers, plunging the entire restaurant into darkness and turning off the lights outside. In the next instant, he'd leapt to join me in the middle of the circle. One heartbeat later, I heard the most ungodly shrieking from the dining area. I clamped my hands over my ears, but it didn't help. It was like the sound waves were made of broken glass. My skin felt like it was being peeled off. My eardrums screamed. I started to fall over and stopped abruptly, only part way down. Brucius had twisted the collar of my shirt around his hand. I'd almost fallen outside the circle. Another shriek rolled over me, and I sobbed in confusion and pain. My muscles clenched into knots as I fought an instinctive urge to run. Brucius' grip tightened, keeping me grounded. Just then, the swinging doors blasted open, and a roiling, inky mass slithered and slopped its way inside. You'd think it would be too dark to see anything, but there were so many mouths, so many teeth, so many eyes. The space filled with the scent of rot and tar. This was the family. I retched and clamped my hands over my mouth to keep the vomit down. mass glided and spilled its way up to the very edge of the salt line and stretched horizontally along its entire length. I understood why there was a circle now. If there'd been the slightest gap in the line, or between the line and the wall, it'd have slithered its way across. My eyes burned the longer I looked. I felt something warm drop onto my hand. I thought it was tears. It was a nosebleed. As the screams ratcheted higher, Bruce shouted, "Close your eyes." I clamped my hands over my ears, screwed my eyes shut, and sobbed. Eventually, I don't know how long, the screaming stopped. I must have passed out right after, because when I came to, it was dawn. Every muscle and bone in my body ached when I stood up. My face was crusted with dried tears, snot, and blood. Bruce's was red-eyed and bedraggled. He was using the special broom, the one that said, "Do not use," in Sharpie on the handle, to sweep all the salt into a large dustpan with the same directive. The salt had turned a smoky blue and smelled like sulphur and gasoline. Perhaps it was the daylight. Perhaps it was surviving the single most terrifying night of my life. But when I spoke, my voice was surprisingly calm, even though it sounded like I'd chewed and swallowed broken glass. "I'm going to wash my face, then I'm going to make us coffee, and then you're going to tell me what the hell that was." He nodded, mumbled, "Yeah," and kept sweeping. I was half tempted to turn the sign at the door to closed, but it was just my luck if the manager appeared out of nowhere when I did. Besides, the place was empty. Once he was done sweeping, he washed his hands and joined me. I poured him a mug of the best coffee I've ever tasted in my life. He lit up a cigarette, and we looked at each other across an empty table. Despite the commotion, the diner was in perfect order, like nothing had ever happened. "What was that?" He took a long drag, as though toying with telling me the truth or not. But after last night, it was too late to lie. "They're called the Family. I never seen them before, but Carrie, the waitress before you and Sheree, worked here for a few years and said they show up every once in a while." He paused as if expecting me to say something. I took a long sip, and he kept on. "The first clue was they didn't have a car. They just appeared, I don't even know from where, and walked in. The second is how they were dressed. Where did they come from? I don't know. But the law is a family disappeared on the highway decades ago, and when they came back they were that. And y'all didn't think to tell me this when I got hired. Would you have believed it? I guess not. There's a reason the pay is so good. What about the salt? The lights? Listen, I don't know all the rules, and she didn't either. But before this place was built, apparently, there were a lot more disappearances. People would get off at this exit because they thought they saw a sign for food or gas, take a turn and never be seen again. But now people just stop here, right off the highway and right back on. But that means when the family gets hungry, they come here. Yeah, that's why you went straight to the back. Yeah, I needed to get started. And you turned off the lights so no one stops while they're here. Yeah, what about the salt? He went quiet. You saw why. At that moment, the door opened, and a couple with a toddler entered. A real family. Oblivious. We stopped talking. I took their order, and Brucius heated up the grill. There was nothing else to do. This happened a few weeks ago, but I'm still working there. Corporate gave us an extra bonus check when the incident was reported, which got me in a cheap hotel with a decent bed and shower for a little while. I'm still applying for jobs, but no one else has called me back for an interview. I'm alive because of Brucius, but he was just hired as a corrections officer at the prison and is leaving soon. to share it with someone, where no one would know who I was or judge me, what do you think I should do?